Hey guys, so I'm here with Ryan Zupan, and Ryan is a former student of mine, and he's currently a university student. And what I really admire about Ryan is he spent a lot of time working on himself, um, you know, really changing his mindset, changing the way that he behaves very differently to the people around him. And today we're talking to well, Ryan's going to be sharing what kids and teens can expect once they finish school, because I think there's a lot of false ideas about what's actually waiting out there once you finish school. And yeah, Ryan, I just want to say thank you for sharing your insights today. How are you doing?
I'm doing actually quite well. Sleep deprived, but that's the nature of university. I mean, a lot of the time, people either expect it to be massively difficult or they expect it to be massively easy. But it's kind of an in between that kind of hits the point perfectly. So currently, I'm sleep deprived, but I've kind of like fixed my sleep cycle. But speaking on the point of what kids can like expect when they leave school and stuff like that, the school heavily exaggerates either to one side being, oh, you don't have to worry, or you have to worry heavily. Um, However, the case is when you leave school, or as you're about to leave school, you always have these thoughts: what is it going to be like? What can I expect? Am I going to get pummeled with work? Am I going to um, like just slack off? And it's kind of an in between because when you leave school, you see yourself being put into this new bubble, whether it be education, whether it be social. You're always put into a new bubble when you leave school. So if you don't go to university, you put into the position of what do I do? Because everyone's idea is that I should go to university so I can further my education. But might not always be the case because you might want to be an entrepreneur, you might want to make something else, and you want to further your own career in a different path. Um, I don't really have that experience. I think you would speak more highly of such a topic. But in my instance, going to university, when I applied or before I even applied, I had this worry about would I achieve what I expected to do in university? Like, would I get the marks that I wanted to? Would I get the career or into the course that I wanted to get into? And that was the biggest what if. Because, and it's a scary moment, especially when you leave school, because you thrust, as I said, you thrust into this new world. But yeah, I guess when you leave, it's a scary moment. No matter how much people exaggerate, saying it's easy, saying it's hard, um, there's always fear, especially in that regard, leaving school. But for myself, being scared initially was it's almost adapted my mindset because being scared is that sense of having not having a what's that a like a comfort net, like there's no, or safety net, sorry, a better word. It's that is It can inspire people to work harder in tough situations because when people have safety nets, they don't work to their potential. And I think that's the biggest thing is that when you're in school, you have this massive safety net. However, when you go to university and or just leave school in general, you don't have that safety net. And that can inspire people to work harder for what they want. And in terms of opportunity, entrepreneurship, as you say, is very effective when people want to work hard to make a difference. Um, Same as university, people work harder because they've decided this is what I want to do, and because they're interested in what they're doing, they obviously work harder towards it. Um, I think that was the case for me when I decided I wanted to do psychology. That was the big thing for me. It pushed me, it drives or drove me to achieve the marks that I've done. Almost inquire more into the educational system and how schools have almost not really prepared you for what is to come, whether it be outside of school or in university.
So I like what you've said there, because I think we all have the sense of a safety net, and especially in school, it feels like a really safe place. I mean, would you agree with that? Feels pretty safe.
Uh, I would agree with that. Um, in terms of the safety nets, it comes with teachers always being there for you. It comes with the social aspect of having all your friends around all the time. I think that's the generic safety net that people keep like talking about, but never going into detail with. Because, as I said, with your teachers always being there, you can always go to them for advice. Not saying you can't do that with lecturers, but it's obviously not that personal because there's so many students in university, as well as you always with your friends every day. And that can help you a lot with the anxiety of doing like schoolwork is that you always have your friends to like lean on. They can give you advice, and that's the massive safety net. And people need to realize that when you leave school, that safety net might still be there. It just won't be in abundance as it is in school.
Yeah, great point, great point. And I I agree with you because we often start to be we often get the sense of being entitled to that safety net, that it was always there, so it's always going to be here. And it's the truth is, it's not always going to be there. There will be certain aspects, like you said, sometimes friends, sometimes teachers, but the safety net is actually a false sense of what's actually real. And the reality, and this is where I have a bit of an issue with school at the moment. There's a big gap. There's a big divide between school and real life. And when you leave school, you get hit hard because you fall into that gap, and you have to like dig yourself out. And if you're not careful, you fall into what so many teens fall into, that sense of like depression, not knowing what's going to happen next. And so I love that point that you bring up, that you know what, you got to acknowledge the safety net. And the younger you are, I mean, if you're like 10 years old and you're listening to this, and you're thinking safety net, great. Start looking at your life and start looking at the places where you feel very safe, and ask yourself, is this my safety net? And is this real? Because there are certain things that you can rely on. I mean, a lot of people can rely on their family. Some people can't. Some people can rely on their friends. Some people can't. It all depends on, the relationships you have. But start figuring out, where's your safety net, and how can you challenge yourself to almost not rely on that safety net as much as you did before. So I mean, that's a powerful point. Maybe if you can just like elaborate, because I mean, you went from that safety net, and the safety net was like ripped away, and you went into university. What were what are some of the lessons that you've learned in like being pushed into the situation where you're like, whoa, you just have to like make it work now? What are some of the lessons that you've learned stepping into this new phase of your life?
Some of the lessons I learned, you could say, were the the idea of self-preservation, whether it be in terms of your studies, whether it be in terms of your social standings. Self-preservation is key because, especially if you want to fully take advantage of not having a safety net, you need to know how to preserve yourself properly because you never can, or you can never always rely on people, if you know what I'm trying to say. Like, you can't always rely on people because when you start relying on people and then they don't pitch up or they don't assist you when needed, then what? Because you need to understand that if you're independent, or if you can be independent, um, it's like the recipe for success. Because when you start relying on people and then that safety net is taken away, you at a disadvantage because you haven't prepared yourself mentally, um, just to cope with such a sense of loss, of losing your social standing, or just losing an environment in which you feel safe in. And yeah, I guess that's my best answer for the point you just brought about.
I love what you said. There's self-preservation. So what is okay? I'm going to ask you two questions here. What for you? Because what I'm understanding is self-preservation is that sense of like independence, being able to, move by yourself. But what is it to you, and how does someone go about building up their sense of self-preservation?
Self preservation for me is, as you could say, independence, but not only just the meaning of that independence. It's the the sense of being emotionally secure with who you are, being proud of who you are as a person. Because if you start developing an attitude that whatever you say and whatever people would get offended by, or the way you dress is not, it doesn't fit in with a particular crowd, then that's when things such as anxiety, depression start fitting in, because people start being consumed by trying to fit in with social standings when it actually doesn't really matter to you, because they won't always be there for you, and that's a fact. Like, they can never always be there for you. I mean, it would be great in theory if they were always there for you, but that's not always the case. Um, but self-preservation is mentally happy with yourself, mentally happy with what you're doing, um, and just it's more about being happy and secure with the things you do, um, the way you are, and just you being happy with yourself. Um, and the way I go about doing it is I just keep thinking to myself, this is what I want to do. This is how I'm going to do it. These are the stakes. And like, what are the consequences if I don't do it this way? However, I don't see the consequences as being a deterrent, because when people hear of deterrence, they keep thinking, but so much stuff can go bad, but they forget about what good can happen when they finish it. And I think that's the important key, is looking at the positive, um, and using that positivity to drive you. Because once you're driven about what you want to achieve, and not only that, but like, when you're driven and you want to do something, or you want to um, increase your social standing, get more friends or whatever, if you're driven to do that, you will succeed in it. If you outweigh, or if you weigh the positives and they're more than the negatives in your mindset, anything can be done. And
Cool.
that's how I look at it.
That is that you said a couple of really key important things there, and I think being happy with yourself is such an important one. And I mean, if I look at a lot of young people today, there's I mean, TikTok is huge in our
Yeah.
generation, in your generation, let's say that. And and I mean, there's this sense of your happiness is tied to the amount of people that follow you, and that's what I'm seeing. I don't know. Would you agree with that or disagree with that?
100%, I agree with that. It's not the right thing, but that's just what's been happening. That's quite sad, in my opinion, because those people shouldn't have an effect in your life, or they shouldn't affect the way you live your life. But they do, because there's such a disconnect um, in the society we live in, because, as you said, people are always worried about the people following them, the people who like their photos or their videos, who share their videos and photos. But you can find a big pool of those people have no like um, effect in your life, like your actual life. They don't see you every day talking with you. They don't do that. And it's just a shame that people's lives can be ruined just by a nasty comment on their photo or stuff like that. It's a shame that people um, it's not a shame that people take it to heart, because people would take it to heart, because obviously if people disrespect them and stuff like that, they will take it to heart, because the nature of people is that they don't want to be disrespected. They want to all be with each other, having a great time. But as soon as disrespect gets thrown in and people start hating on other people, it becomes a problem. And I think social media in that sense is being abused, because it's not meant to do that. But a lot of the teenagers, especially, who've been introduced to these social media platforms, have been exposed to this, and it's just sad how that it's all just developed in such a negative way. Like, obviously, there's so much positive in it, but it takes that little bit of negative, and with someone that has the bad mindset that day, and it just breaks them down for like a month, and they're in a very bad state after that.
Have you seen that happen? Have you seen that happen to some people that you know?
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen that to people I've known, and still know. I mean, people body shaming them, saying they can't do this because they look this way. They'll never get a boyfriend. They'll never get a girlfriend. It's just people are envious of other people, whether they have a better personality, They look better, but in the case people don't look or act better or have a better personality than other people, everyone could have the same personality if their mindset is the same way inclined. But obviously, the people who are in a negative mindset are trying to bring other people down because they feel bad, and them bringing other people down somehow makes them feel better, which I don't really get because I think for them it's a short-term gratification, and then they, in order to keep getting that, they just keep doing it to people and they just keep harming other people, and I think that's wrong. But yeah, people just need to fix their mindsets. I know it's an easy thing to say, but you just need to put your mind to something. Once you put your mind to something and you ignore what other people say in a negative sense, because you don't want to ignore people that obviously give you positive advice and stuff like that, but especially get rid of the negative in your life. Once you get rid of the negative and you're driven, nothing can stop you until you achieve what you want to achieve.
Oh, cool. That's that's a powerful message. And I mean, just going back to that message that you're talking about, that negativity that people receive in social media. I love what Gary Vee says about this, where he says, if someone's bringing your negativity your way, they're in a really bad space. They're in a bad space. They're not happy, and they're taking it out on you. But I think the key to what you're saying here, which has been a powerful message for me, is that you got to be happy with yourself before anything else. You cannot tie your happiness to what you will receive on social media. Because if you're going to do that, even outside of social media, with your friends, talking about self-preservation, that sense of independence, what I'm getting from you talking about this and what I'm finding really profound is that you've got to make yourself independent of what happens in your life, the effect that people will have in your life. Obviously, you know what, it will happen, but you cannot tie your happiness to other people. You've got to tie your happiness to what you personally believe in, what you want, what makes you happy. You've got to focus on the positive. So I think in what you said, there's so many lessons there in anyone who's currently struggling with any aspect of their life, whether it's social media, whether it's friendships, whether it's family, whether it's school results, whether it's like future orientation and what they're going to do. I love what you said about you've got to become self-preserved. You've got to preserve yourself. You've got to become independent. You've got to almost cut the ties with the things outside of yourself that you cannot control to determine your happiness. You've got to bring it back in and say, what makes me happy as a person? And it's going to be tied to other people. I mean, we are social beings. We love to be around other people. We love to interact with other people. And most of all, I think at the core of our human essence, we want to help people. We want to help people in very different ways. We want to help different people. We want to give our gift, right? The thing that we are great at doing, we want to give that to other people. But we've got to start there. We can't start with like, I want I want 1,000 followers. Because like you said, a lot of those people are not invested in our lives. They don't want to know outside of like a video that they could like. We don't know what that like means. Was that like a or was it like I love this, right? We'll never know those things because the truth is we're never going to have a deep relationship with thousands and thousands and thousands of people until we have a deep relationship with who we are, what we
Yes.
want, and how we're going to get it. So I love what you said there on, focusing on the positive, the things that you want, focusing on the positive for you and driving, letting that drive you. But equally important, what you said there is whenever you're going to do something, you've got to weigh up the pros and cons. And you've got to be realistic about it because what you said was so true for me. In that when you're going to do something, you've got to say, what are the positives that could come out of this? What are the negatives that could come out of this? And then you've got to weigh it up and say, knowing what I know here, okay, and knowing that there's going to be other things that will come up that I have no control over, am I willing to do this? Am I willing, me, to do
Yep.
this? Because we could easily go, I'm going to do it. And then, like you said, the first obstacle arrives where someone sends like a message saying, man, you're too fat to be doing this or something, right? Something negative, whether it's in your family, friendship circles, or even like social media circles. Something is going to come up and you got to decide for yourself, am I doing this for the right reason? Because if you're not, if you start off going, That's what I want. I just want a thousand followers or 10,000 followers, or I want 100,000 people to like my videos. The first time someone doesn't, it's going to pull you out the game. It's going to send you going, why am I doing this? It's going to send you into a spiral, right? And we're all going to spiral. The key is here, we've got to surround ourselves with a core group of people. Even though we're independent, we've got to surround ourselves with a core group of people that, first of all, understand us, support us, and we support them. So we've got to always create this exchange for people as well. But we've got to have a root within ourselves. And I know we were talking about this, Ryan, where I mean you finished school what 2 years ago now, right?
Yeah.
2 years ago, and I mean I remember when I finished school, I had a ton of friends when I was at school, right? And then I look back now, and I mean I could count the people from my school that I still speak to today, and I can count them on my one hand. And when I asked you that same question, you gave me a similar answer, right? So maybe you could just tell me a bit about that because I think a lot of people in school have this idea that when they leave school, everything's going to be the same. Like you said, the safety net's going to be there. What can people expect to change in like the quality of friendships when you leave school? Can you give some insights into that?
So just to bring it back a little bit, in school, you have so many friends, as you've said. In school, you socialize day in, day out. You get these groups of friends. You start interacting with people, um, and that's just a fact. You, even if you don't have a lot of friends in school, you still socialize with a lot of people. So even though you don't think they're your friend, you still have the social connection with them. And the abundance of social connections you have in school is, like, I would say 10 times as much as you would have as soon as you leave school. Because the reality is, unless you have the best charisma, the best rhetoric, all of that, there is no way that you will keep all of those friends, no matter how hard you try. Because all those friends will conflict with your other friends. Like the one group would say, "Oh, you don't spend time with us," and then the other group would say the same thing as soon as you talk to the other group. And it's just not a reality. Um, in like as soon as you leave school, you're gonna lose friends. It's a fact. As much as we don't want that to happen, you will lose friends. It's how you cope with it that matters. Because if you understand that the friends that you have now might not be the friends you have when you leave school, that triggers your self-preservation. Because it's very nice to have one of your friends come up to you and say, "Oh, can I help you with this?" or "Can you help me with that?" It immediately triggers their or your sense of worth to them, and that's an important thing. So when you could say the quality of your friends in school, you could say is around about here, right? The quality of your friends when you leave school would be here, the ones that stick around with you, because these are the ones you know you can count on. These are the ones you're still deciding, and that's just how it works. When you're in school, you have like a mediocre quality of friends, unless you have like another level just above it, which is the good friends you have in school. But I would just say around about here is the mediocre friends that you have, and then when you leave school is the ones that keep talking to you and you still share that social connection with. Those are the ones who are most likely to stick around with you through the thick and thin. And I think that's what people need to understand, is that the people that help you and the ones that are always there to support you and the ones that you can always make time for are the true friends that you have. And those are the people you need to put your like all your effort into, um, as well as keep your self-preservation alive, because there is a chance. It's a much lower chance than in school, but there is a chance that the people that you have still built that strong connection with will break away and they'll venture their own course. And that's just a fact. So maintain the good relationships you have with the people that still talk to you and that share the social connection with. However, maintain your self-preservation, because that could be your savior, and you'll pray to your lucky stars that you self-preserved yourself for that scenario, because if it does happen and you have not prepared for it, you will crash and burn, because unless you have a very good sense of like self-awareness, and your independence is the most important thing to you, if you do not have that, you will crash and burn, because especially with so many teens, as you said, they're so worried about their social standings, they're so worried about um, like what's going on in their life, in terms of their social interactions, that they forget to focus on themselves, and they keep doing things to make themselves look better, and stuff like that, where in fact focusing on yourself is the most important, because if you yourself are happy and you love making other people happy, it is a very key point to stay happy, because if you are not happy and your goal is to try and make other people happy, and you make them laugh and you make them enjoy themselves, but you're not enjoying yourself as a person, that's a very difficult thing to keep up with, because people will notice that you aren't happy, and it'll kind of deter them from being happy because they're worried about you, and you trying to make them happy will basically be null and void, because they notice that you aren't happy, and if they're your friends, they will check up on you, and then just you not being happy kind of stops other people from being happy, especially the ones that are close to you, because they'll always worry about you. So I think the first thing is stay happy with who you are, the decisions you make, better the relationships that you have with people, make them stronger, but always focus on your self-preservation, because that is key. I think that's the biggest point.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very insightful. And I think what you've hit on there is so important because there's always this balance. And you were talking about it in the beginning. You were alluding to like balance. You got to make sure that life is balanced. And I think you need to be self-preserved, but you cannot be self-isolated. So you cannot be like you can't just give up on people altogether and go and live in the mountains and like forget about anyone else and just go, you know what? Forget people. I'm done with people. And unfortunately, a lot of people reach that point because they've been burned so many times with their friendships, with with different social media problems that come up with family, that we often give up and go like, well, not maybe let's not say we, but some people will give up and they'll go, I'm done with this. I don't want this to happen
Yeah.
anymore, and they go into the sense of what they think is self-preservation, but it's actually self-isolation, and they want to remove themselves from the pain. But that's the worst thing you can do, because the moment that you do that, you disconnect yourself. And like I was saying before, we are social creatures. We need to have interaction with people, because and I think this is the core message that I'm trying to develop, is that we have a gift, each one of us, but our gift is there to serve humanity in some way. In some way, we're here to help people. But we've got to first figure out where that is. How are we going to be helping people? Because it's going to come from a place where we're happy with ourselves. We need to be happy with ourselves before we can help other people. And what you said there is so profound, because so many people tie their happiness to other people, that if they're not happy, it's because of other people, and it becomes a very vicious circle. Because if I'm not happy until I'm around people, or if I'm not happy until people are giving me something or doing something for me or doing something with me, then people notice. People notice my moods. I'll be down, I'll be up, I'll be down, I'll be up, and then, like you said, they start to worry. They start to worry about me, and then we're going into the realm of dependence. Now we become people dependent, whether it's on social media, friendship, family. We become very dependent, and that dependency is going to tie. It's going to tie in our happiness to what happens with other people, and then it becomes a chain. We're like, oh, as soon as this happens, I'm happy. As soon as this doesn't happen, I'm not happy. And then we go and we sulk, and then other people start to worry about us. As you said, people start to worry about us, and that becomes very difficult, because then there's this problem of, if people are not helping us out, if people are not supporting us in some way, we're down. We become almost a burden to them, right? And I know you've had some tough conversations with people that because they're in that place right now where they're just not happy, and they derive happiness from seeing other people happy. But at the same time, because they're not happy, people worry about them, and it just becomes a focus of negativity. And sometimes you had to play the bad guy, where you had to say, you know what, I'm not happy with this, and I'm going to tell you how it is. And you had to be honest. So I mean, for you, like, was it difficult laying down that kind of honesty with someone that you consider to be a friend?
I think I could agree that it was difficult because it's never easy telling someone that you're close to that you need a man up, because you have that connection with them, and there's always in the back of your mind, like, what if I say offends them? But it's when you reach the point that what you say, as I was saying before, the pros and cons. So if I tell the person that that you are wrong in this sense, and if I tell the person, or if I just baby them and say, no, you're doing it right, you just need to keep working at it, whatever. There's pros and cons to that, and being honest with them is a very key point in relationships, because if you're being honest with somebody and you keep telling them that, or even if they don't, whatever they don't want to hear, even though it is the cold hard truth, it's better to tell them that than to beat around the bush and just let them figure it out by themselves. Because if you tell them how it is, first of all, they can see you as a genuine friend, because they're not always taking your side in the situation. um, but also it may open their eyes, because they're obviously in a sort of an isolated mental state from everybody else, and their decisions are biased because of the emotions that they're feeling. And when you come and be their rock, not emotionless, because obviously you caring for them and whatnot, but if your decisions are completely unbiased, I find those are the best decisions for people, because in an argument, you always need someone, or the mediator, to look at both sides of the story and come up with a viable explanation for what's going on and how they can fix it. And I think you being a um, their rock is the most effective, because you take your bias out of the situation, as well as you give them the cold hard truth. They can take it or they can leave it, but you giving your honest opinion and being there for them in an unbiased sense can be the most effective form of rehabilitation that someone can ever get, in that sense. So you being there for them, being unbiased, one of the best things you can ever do in a friendship, because it shows you care. You don't want them to go down the path that they're going, and you really want them just to get more, make their situation better for them, because you can't do it yourself. You can't put yourself in their shoes, and then control their body and then fix it for them. You can't do that. It's up to them. And once you hit them with that realization that I can help you, but you have to do this yourself. I can assist you through it, but you have to make these decisions. And I think that's what people need to understand, because as much as you want to help people, you can't force them to do something that they don't want to do or they're uncomfortable with. All you can do is explain to them that this is what's happening to you. This is how you can make it better. I'll help you through it. It's going to be a long road, but you have to want to do this. You want to have to get out of this mental state or this situation that you're in, and you have to want to work towards being better and being happier.
Yeah, yeah, I love what you said. Um, it's so important, and I love the analogy that you gave there. This metaphor of be their rock. I think people have this misunderstanding of what it means to be someone's rock, where
Yeah.
they're like, "You're my rock," you were there through everything. Uh, I think what you said is really important, because a rock is something that you can stand on. Okay,
Mm.
it is a solid foundation, but a rock, you cannot carry a rock around with you.
Yeah.
Okay, not unless you want to. I mean, unless you want to develop like Arnold Schwarzenegger type of muscles, right? You cannot carry a rock with you. You can stand on it. It's going to tell you the cold, hard truth sometimes, But in everything, in the storm, it's not going to go anywhere. It's going to be the space where you can actually have a foundation to stand on. I think most people think that a rock is something that almost propels you forward. It does everything for you. It's this thing that you can stand on and the rock will magically move. No, that's not what the person in your life, the people in your life that will be rocks will do. They will give you the foundation. They will tell you this is where you're at. Okay? I saw a meme this morning saying, good friends speak well about you to your face, but they'll tell you the bad things about you to your sorry, they speak well about you behind your back, but they'll tell you the truth or they'll tell you the bad things to your face. And what you're saying right now is very much that. You got to be able to be honest with people. Now, your honesty is your truth. It's not necessarily the ultimate truth, but you got to have a group of people surrounded that you surround yourself with that give you that kind of foundation that say, this is the truth, right? Maybe you could tell me, like, look, have I been picking up weight? And it's like, you know what? It's winter. You've been eating a lot. Your midline's starting to show, my friend. That's it. You know, lay it out. You stop going to the gym. I think it's time you hit the gym again. That's it. It's not being nasty. It's looking at the facts, saying, I care enough about you to tell you this to your face. Okay, so I think it's so important that relating what you said to levels of friendship, so important for people to go, okay, cool. At school I'm going to have this kind of friendship, this almost like, I wouldn't say superficial, but almost like a layer above superficial, where it's like we know each other, we see each other every day, we're kind of there for each other sometimes, but what you're really looking for is that level of friendship that's willing to go a bit deeper. That level of friendship that goes, you know what, I'm there for you, but at the same time, I want to see you improve. I want to see you be happy. And I know that right now you're not happy. So I'm going to help you get there by asking you, hey, what does make you happy? You know what, when you were doing this, this, and this at school, or when you were doing this, this, and this, you were pretty happy. So why did you stop doing that? So we can start having those honest conversations, with people, with friends, and see like what comes of it. Because ultimately, when you leave school, you're not gonna have you're not gonna have that sense of suddenly life has hit you if you have preserved yourself, if you prepared the way Ryan's been talking about you. You've got to prepare yourself for what's coming, okay? Because the truth is, as much as school will prepare you for life, it's not going to. School has a different focus. School has predominantly an academic focus. I mean, Ryan, we were talking about this yesterday. Like I mentioned, I actually don't know if I mentioned it to you, but I mentioned it to someone yesterday, and how there's so many things in life. Oh, it wasn't a conversation with you, it was a conversation with someone else, in that someone in a very similar position to you who's heading into university, left school, he's planning on going to the UK, and he knows when he gets there, he's going to have a bunch of skills that he currently doesn't have. He doesn't know how to cook. He doesn't know how to wash clothes. He's so he's sitting here now, and he's like, while I'm here, I'm going to learn these things because I was not prepared for this eventuality of working on my own. I wasn't prepared for like having to budget when I got a part-time job, and now I'm having to like budget. And when I see the price of things, I'm like, okay, if I get this now, what will it mean for? So there's so many things that will come, and being able to, it could be overwhelming, right? It could be very overwhelming if we don't sit back and go, there's time, right? Human beings are learning entities. We love to learn. We love to be able to just assimilate things. Well, like we couldn't do something today and tomorrow we can do it, or like a week from now we can do it. So I think the key to all of this is don't feel overwhelmed. You're going to make mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes. Let me ask you this, Ryan. Since leaving school, have you made mistakes?
100%. 100%. The biggest mistake I made was um, actually not really a mistake. It was a good life lesson. So I'm not encouraging taking gap years or anything like that. But if you don't know what you want to do, it can possibly be the best thing for you, because even if you take 2 months into your gap year to decide what you want to do, you've used that time effectively. Um, and then you can use the rest of your time that you have on that gap year to further um, seek out your interests and your passions, because right there in that moment you could decide that you want to be a doctor or you want to be an engineer or whatever. But 4 months down the line, you could have found another passion. You could be watching Gordon Ramsay tutorials on YouTube and then like decide you want to be a cook. Like your interests always change. But once you've hit that cemented idea of what you really want to do, that will then link to your self preservation and then push your drive. And that'll make you decide this is what I want to do. And that's when you have to take your own independence and decide this is how I'm going to do it. So I wouldn't say like obviously once I decided like 3 4 months into my gap year I decided what I want to do, and then the rest of the year I was like I could have been at university already. I could have like been like 4 months into university, but so that was a waste. At that time I thought it was a waste, but throughout the year I continued to look into what I'm doing and I decided this is what I want to do. So it wasn't wasted time because I reaffirmed myself and I was like, yes, it is what I want to do. So the whole gap year would allow you to experience what you want to do. Then it would allow you to um, confirm with yourself, this is what I want to do. And then at the end, you decide, this is what I want to do. So it gives you a long time period to seek out your interests, reaffirm your interest by looking at other interests. And if they don't interest you, obviously know that's the one for you. Then at the end, you confirm, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to do it. This is what I want to achieve. Because a lot of people go into things not knowing the expectation of them, as well as not knowing what they want to achieve by doing it. Because, or if I could put it in a personal sense, I want to be a psychologist because I feel being a psychologist, or what I've heard from psychology departments, is that they allow people to, or they give people tasks to do, and then they do it and they come back, their patients come back to them and then they reaffirm that this is going all right, I feel better or I feel worse. But I feel it's the personal um, interaction with people that's important. And if people that go to psychologists are the ones that give ideas on how they can improve, then that's better than you just giving them something to do because they're pushing to achieve something that you gave them to do, right? Sure, that's all well and good. It can work sometimes, but the most effective way is when people push themselves to achieve what they want to achieve, because then they've come to a conclusion that I've done it. I feel better about myself. I achieved what I wanted to achieve. And I think that's better than people giving other people tasks to do. And I think that's what happens in school. And I think that's why people don't feel accomplished when they leave school, is because they didn't set tasks for themselves saying that I want to get this mark or I want to get this mark. It's normally their parents that are giving them expectations or their teachers that are giving them expectations, saying, oh, you didn't do well. I want you to do this. But when people set their own goals and saying, oh, I want to do this way, I want to achieve this way, and this is how I'm going to do it overall. And when they achieve it, you feel more, or you feel you're in a better space when you set yourself a goal and you achieve it than if someone sets you a goal and you achieve it. So yeah.
Yeah, so true, so true that we, often throughout our schooling career, so many other people are telling us what to do, telling us what we should be achieving, and if we make that a habit, we're in danger because there is that when you talk about self-preservation and independence, I think that's the start, right? And I love what you said there about gap years because gap years, for so many people who don't know what they want to do, a gap year is not a bad thing. A gap year, if you use it the right way, and I'm going to talk about that now. If you use it the right way, it can help you in so many ways. It can help to really sort out your mind, help you get focused on what your interests are. Because, so I'm going to share my screen here, but this is something that Jay Shetty was talking about a while ago. I listened to him talking and how there's three phases of really finding out what your purpose is. I mean, we all want to find out what our purpose is, but he said interest is like a child, while passion is like a teenager, and purpose is like an adult. And the reason why he says that is that, your passion is really for you. It's something that you really get engrossed in. It's something that's really powerful, but your purpose is for other people. But the key here is that it all starts with interest. And you have to know what your interests are. What are the things that really you are interested in? And I think the problem there is that so many people go through life, so many children who become teenagers, who become young adults, they go through life not knowing what their interests are because they've come out of this idea where like their parents have been telling them what to do, their teachers have been telling them what to do, but they themselves don't know what they want to do. They don't know what makes them happy. So I love what you said there about taking a gap year if you're not sure what you want to do. If you don't know what your interests are, taking a gap year to find out. And like Ryan, I love what you said about, within 2 months you were like, no, this is what I want to do. And then you thought, this is a bit of a waste. But it wasn't really, because in hindsight, it gave you the time to actually ask yourself, is this really what I want to do? Is this really for me? Okay. I have a friend who, years ago, he's a friend who has a lot of tattoos, and I'm not one for tattoos, but he had a lot of tattoos, and I asked him the one day, how do you know that this is a tattoo that you want? Because for me, I'd be worried that like I looked at this tattoo now, and then I'm like, oh, why did I get this? Because a tattoo, we have laser removal and stuff, but it's like a forever thing. And he said, "You know what I do, Marco? I put the picture of a tattoo that I'm interested in on my fridge. And if I can see that picture day in and day out for like 6 months on my fridge and I still like it after 6 months, then I'll consider getting that as a tattoo." And it's always been a lesson that stuck with me because I think it's so important that we do the same things in our lives. However old you are, you need to be able to say, let me look at this thing. If I'm really interested in this, if I do this for like a couple of minutes every day, do I still enjoy it? Because if you do enjoy it still, chances are it's going to lead you to your passion, right? And your passion's a little bit deeper. And your passion over time will lead to your purpose. So listening to you talk now, Ryan, it's powerful for me because, and I connect with it because you want to help people, but you want to help people help themselves, right? You don't want to be that crutch for them. You want to help them become more independent, so that eventually, they walk away going, you know what, Ryan, thank you so much for your help. You've really helped me a lot. I know exactly what to do now. And you go, excellent. I'm glad. I'm happy for you. And you send them on their way. Obviously, they can come back and visit you, whatever, when they need more help. But that for me is like it's getting deeper into like a passion, heading into a purpose, right? And the more that we actually delve into that, the more we understand it at a much deeper level. So I think your advice there in taking a gap year, if you don't know what you want to do, take a gap year, even if you can't afford it and you need to like work a part-time job, or maybe like you become an entrepreneur and you start making a bit of money on the side so you can sort of support your gap year. First figure out what are you interested in, because you shared this, right, when you wanted to do psychology, but you know what you're getting yourself into. For you, it's not a 3-year journey, it's an 8-year journey, right? And they told you at orientation that the 5,000 people who signed up to do psychology, of those 5,000 people, after the first year, it'll be whittled down to like 1,500 people. And then from there, the next year it'll be smaller, smaller, smaller until by the 8th year, when people have finished off their master's or doctorate in psychology, it's going to be 10 people. Now that's a scary stat for a lot of people, but here's the reality of things. People go off on different paths and they do different things, and the journey for one person might end here. It doesn't mean that they die, right? It means that they'll branch off onto another journey. They'll pursue something else. But it's so important to give yourself the space to actually do what's right for you. And it all comes down to what you said in the beginning there, knowing what makes you happy and finding that happiness. But the earlier you can find it, the better. Like Ryan, let me ask you this. When did you first start? How old were you when you first started thinking differently about this? Like, how old were you when you first started changing the way that you saw what you were doing and the person that you were becoming?
It was towards the end of grade 11 to the beginning of grade 12. My mindset changed because I realized with going to um, life orientation, we call it. I don't know what it is in other schools, but we call it life orientation. Going to those lessons, I found I learned very little about what it means to leave school and how much pressure you're going to be under. Because the most they ever brought to our attention was the children going to university are going to be under a lot of pressure. But they never spoke about the people that don't go to university or can't afford university. It was always the fact of university. And like that was, it changed my mindset because I realized that they're not going into depth about it. So the only way I can educate myself about what I can expect is like exposing myself to it, looking up documentaries about how people left school and stuff like that. Just testing my limit on how I understand the educational system and how much I don't understand or that they don't teach us, because it's the parts that they don't teach us which I think they should teach us, especially when it comes to school and leaving school. They need to start teaching us about what we really can expect, whether that be bringing past students into the school so that they can explain, or I don't know, it has to be something, because you can't just let students have no clue about what it is to leave school and what to expect. And they beat around the bush about it, but they need to be more clear about what to expect, because that's how you make people succeed or can help people succeed, is by giving them an idea of what they can expect when they leave school, because that is the bare bones. At least you could help them with that. And obviously you can't walk with them into university, but the idea is you want to give them the best advantage so that they know what they can expect, they know what they want to achieve, and just help them. That's literally all I ask, is help them understand what is going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, I love your message there, man. Help people and help bridge the gap because here's the sad thing, right? I think in terms of schooling, there's so much focus on all these things that you do. I mean, you have your core subjects after you're like grade 10, you choose your core subjects and you roll with those. But life orientation should orient you towards life. And it should be, instead of doing it for an hour a week, it should be a lot broader. It should be like a couple of hours a week. If you're gonna, a couple of hours a week where it's gonna drill home the fact that when you leave school, there is no safety net. And it should bring in those things. And I love that idea. Bring in past students. Bring in the students that have succeeded. Bring in the students that have failed. You know, let them see like, wow, this is what I did. This is what I didn't do. This is what I wish I had done. Get people excited about the fact that there are choices to be made, and every one of us is going to make those choices. We need to own the choices that we're going to make, right? And I think the sad thing is that a lot of people are disillusioned when they're in school because everyone is pretty much set up for university. And like you said, they are the kids that luckily can afford university, but then there's the group that either are not academic enough for university, or they just can't afford it. And I'll say this today: student loan debt is one of the biggest debts in the world today, because so many students are sold on this idea like, man, I need to go to university, and if I can't go, I've got to get a student loan, and I've got to make sure that I can pay off their student loan. There are people like heading towards their 30s that are still paying off student loans, and there are companies, big investment companies, that are investing in student loan because for them it's income. Okay, they know that students, when they are employed, they'll pay off their loans. My fear for that is that, you know what, when you tie your self-worth into a degree, you might miss the point of your happiness. You might miss the point of your purpose. You don't necessarily need a degree in order to fulfill your purpose. Yes, you might need the knowledge, the skills, the qualifications behind you, which is the journey that you're on right now, Ryan. But for so many people, it's there's this unrealistic expectation that, you know what, if you don't go to university, well, then you failed, right? And I think school very much sets that up. Like, I was talking to a young lady yesterday, and she said when she went to grade 10, they told her, this is the year that's going to make or break you. Okay? If you don't choose the right subjects, you'll never succeed in life. And I thought, wow, really? Is that the picture you want to paint for people when the truth is, I'll say this, so many people have finished a degree and then they went on to do something else. Okay? So there are certain professions you're going to need that degree for. And there's certain professions where you're going to find your way around it. You're going to get practical skills by getting work experience and all of those things. The important thing to remember here is that, like Ryan said, you've got to go on that journey of asking yourself, where am I going with my life? And is the current education, advice, opinions, and knowledge that I'm getting, the information that I'm getting from others, is it going to help me get there? Is it going to prepare me for eventualities where school's going to end, or this might end, or that might end? Am I going to be prepared for it? If not, how am I going to prepare myself for it? So, Ryan, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your insight today. Is there anything you want to leave with? Just like, if you could have a conversation with your younger self when you were going through those steps of like, oh, what is going to happen, right? Where you had that fear. If you could give some advice to your younger self, what would it be? Yeah, what would it be?
Well, first of all, don't be a naughty little kid, right? First of all, don't be a naughty little kid because, um, well, I mean, you can be naughty, right? But don't spread negativity. Um, because when I was a little kid, I was a feisty one. I like messed around a little bit in school. Well, all the way up to middle college, I was a diligent student. When I got into high school, I thought I was the top dog. I thought I was the big boy, but I wasn't. So if I could send a message to my former self, I would say, you're the smallest fish in the biggest pond, right? You have worth in some sense. You keep the ecosystem running. But if you get removed, you are not nothing, the world won't change, right? But I'm saying that in a good sense because everything in an ecosystem, and by the ecosystem I mean your life, matters. Every single little detail matters. Um, Appreciate the time that you could have had in school, the amount of time you could have got better marks when you actually didn't. But most of all, I feel like my past self did really, really well. Obviously, there's improvements I could have made. Nobody's perfect, but just take the time to think about what you want to do or what you wanted to do. Because I felt like I wasted a lot of time in school because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know um, who my real friends were. Like there was a specific portion, I think it was in middle college, where I thought I knew who my friends were, but I didn't. Just take the time to. I felt like I should have started my self preservation earlier. Obviously, everyone's situation is different, but I felt like I would have been in a better place if I started my self preservation a lot earlier. You can obviously adapt this to other people's past selves and who they are now, but a key thing is to love who you are, love what you do, love the people that you have supporting you, and give back to them as much as possible because the ones that are there for you and that are still here with you right now, they're the ones that are going to remain with you for a very, very long time. So know their worth, give back to them, show how much you appreciate what they've done for you, and just live life.
Ah, thank you, Ryan. Thank you. That is really profound advice. And yeah, I think anyone wondering what to expect when they leave school, that is for me. If you were talking to your former self, I was listening as if I was receiving your advice from my to my former self, and I was going, man, that is really good advice. So universal, right? Whether you're I don't know 12 years old listening to this or 85, it doesn't matter. It's really great advice, and the key there is start now, right? Wherever you are, start now. We could all beat ourselves up and go, I wish I'd started earlier. wishing doesn't change the situation. You are right now, if you are listening to this right now, you're in a position where you have a choice. And you can choose to carry on doing what you were doing, behaving the way that you were behaving before, or you could choose to change your complete attitude, your mindset right now, in this moment, and start listening to some of the advice that Ryan shared today so that you can have a very different future, a very different result on the other side of what your new behaviors are going to be. So, Ryan, I just want to thank you again. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure hanging out with you. Definitely love to do this again. But thank you so much. Thank you, man.
It's a pleasure, sir. Anytime.
Awesome. Thank you. And yeah, we will be back with more insight soon.